Welcome to Emotional Intelligence Simplified. This is a weekly podcast focused on demystifying and discussing what emotional intelligence is. Demystifying what emotional intelligence is has become a main agenda for Profiles International as they continue in their quest of molding cultures. This podcast seeks to explore everyday stories through the lens of emotional intelligence. We discuss the key elements of emotional intelligence that allow people to really connect with others, collaborate effectively, and make more effective decisions, whether at the workplace or in our personal lives. Join us as we explore with our invited guests the elements of emotional intelligence and other key areas such as well-being, creating safety in your area of influence, growing each day in resilience, and much more. I am Angela Mwihaki, an emotional intelligence practitioner and coach, and I am also a professional mediator and a broadcaster. And I am joined by Vicky Karuga from Profiles International. Vicky, tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you, Mwihaki. I am also a Genos EI practitioner, practicing in the area of training and facilitating in emotional intelligence, among other things, and also trying to mold cultures to understand what EI is, especially in our daily lives. And I also run the company called Profiles International that also does a lot of work towards emotional intelligence.
And we want to thank you for sponsoring this podcast as we delve into the world of emotional intelligence. And of course, the first question is, what is emotional intelligence?
I like by first asking the person who's asking me that question, which in this case is you. What have people been saying emotional intelligence is?
People have all kinds of theories about emotional intelligence, like emotional intelligence is being kind. You know, they have very interesting definitions of what is emotional intelligence. But for me, when I think about emotional intelligence, it feels like a superpower, you know?
It does, eh?
Yeah, because when I think about it, it's something that has to be used and flexed. So it's like a muscle. That's how you make it better. And I think what I get about emotional intelligence is, for me, it's like I said, it's like a muscle. It's a skill. You have to work on it continuously. And the best thing about emotional intelligence is everybody can have emotional intelligence. Now that is me. So when I look at you, what is emotional intelligence?
I actually concur with you. I think it's a very intelligent thing for you to learn as a person because it touches on how you manage yourself, how you approach problems, how you approach other people. If we're to believe that gifts come from other people and results come between when we have collaboration between us and other people, then we must really understand very fundamentally that being able to navigate ourselves and others is a key skill essential to us guys getting to where we want to be, don't you think?
Absolutely. So so let's look at what do people say about emotional intelligence?
So most of the things are like, Vicky, people who are understanding, Kimodo understanding, those ones have high emotional intelligence. The ones who are always super calm, they never get upset. Those ones are people we consider have high emotional intelligence. Others talk about having a positive mindset. People who are always positive, they see the good in everything. Those are guys high in emotional intelligence. What have you heard?
I've heard about people who are always happy, people who have 100% listening capacity. I really don't know if it's humanly possible. And of course, if you're a problem solver, you must have emotional intelligence. But I think that's putting a lot of pressure. I don't think anybody can be all those things all the time.
Nope. I've also heard, unfortunately for me, because I talk a lot about emotional intelligence, that sometimes when I do get angry, someone will throw a quip at me that, but I thought you have EI. And I'm like, who said people with EI?
Don't get angry.
Don't get angry.
Or frustrated or stressed.
Exactly, or frustrated and stressed. So I will start by a very intellectual, so to speak, definition of EI, even as we continue with this episode. And emotional intelligence has been defined as the ability to recognize. We must first be able to recognize and then understand.
Okay.
So understand the emotions, and then be able to manage our emotions.
So it starts with you.
It starts with you, but it doesn't stop there.
Okay.
So it's to manage and influence our emotions and also those of others. So you see, there are two elements to this particular story here.
So first we recognize, understand, and manage ours. And then we recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others.
Exactly. So you can't really have one
and not the other.
Yeah, basically. And I'm thinking that when you think about EI, and I guys ask, what does emotional intelligence? Why should I work so hard to get this skill of managing emotions, not only in myself, which is hard enough, but influencing those of others? And I ask people to really be cognizant of the fact that emotions play a big part in how you make decisions.
That is very true.
Yeah. So when I come into the studio today with you, Mwihaki, how I'm feeling will determine the quality of the conversation we're going to have.
It is true, because you'll also influence how I feel. I get it. So there has to be synergy.
There has to be synergy. So how did I show up here today? What do I need to manage in myself to make sure that this particular scenario, situation we're finding ourselves has the best possible outcome? That
takes a lot of actual thinking and being present. Because sometimes we just do things, we go through motions. So now you're telling me I have to be aware as I get here, which is true. We had to think about being here and what we're going to do and what we want out of this.
Yeah.
So that means the first, I'm almost jumping the gun. I get what you're saying. So yes, you have to recognize what it is you're doing. Yeah. So now, why do we need to be able to manage emotions, especially when we're under pressure, and we're dealing with things?
Because emotions are things we carry around. We can't leave them, at the door. You know that myth of you check your emotions at the door when you're getting to work. Let's just laugh.
Ukiwa na hasira, ukifika kazini acha kwa gate. And then when you're done, when you're leaving when you leave your anger and your stress and your issues at the gate, and then on your way out, you can pick them up.
I'll be sharing more about this in the podcast to come. But do you know that there is no difference between that part of your brain that we say is logical and the part of your brain that we say is emotional? That's a myth.
It's the same part it's not like different sides of the brain.
We think with our emotions, with our logic, everything is so intricately woven together. You cannot say, I'm a logical thinker, I throw my emotions out of the door. Most likely, by the way, you're a very emotional thinker, but you just have not made yourself aware as to how emotions are really affecting the decisions that you're making.
A lot of people are going to be like, I'm very calm and logical and methodical.
So there you go. I'm very calm. So what is being calm? Maybe let's describe calm.
It's an emotion. So yeah, you can't isolate them, because people try to say, no, don't be emotional. I made a rational decision. It was objective.
And especially, it becomes very important when you're under pressure.
Okay.
Because, when the rubber meets the road is when you really have to... Is that the way we say we separate man from? What's the saying? There's something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
is it boys from men, or I don't even know?
I don't know what it is. But when you're under pressure, you tend to react largely from a primal point of view. It doesn't matter whether that pressure is from work, whether it's from your husband, whether it's from your child, in any situation. So when you're feeling a certain type of way, again, what decisions are you making? Are you enabling yourself? Are you cracking under pressure? Are you even aware of how much pressure you've been taking lately? And that the next thing that comes your way is probably being the one that's going to snap your composure, your calmness, so to speak.
Okay, so we're going to look at how we give and receive feedback. And what other things are we going to look at? How to meet tight deadlines.
How to deal with challenging relationships. How to navigate change, especially self-change.
Okay.
Yeah. how to better manage resources as well to be able to be sustainable and resilient over time.
I like
also,
that.
we're going to explore with our invited guests as well on the real meaning of purpose. People really underestimate what purpose does to anyone, and even to an organization and to a company. Again, just sharing some of the things out there, and you can Google them. Organizations that are able to have a leader who gives purpose do well.
Absolutely. I think I get it. I just think of if you have a boss and how they relate to you and how they make you feel will either drive you to great places or create a feeling of like meh.
Meh. In fact, you'd rather hate them, but now it's meh. Meh is nowhere. It's neither like nor dislike. You're just there. You're not moving forward. You're not moving back. I think that gray area is a very dangerous place to be.
And I think like in this season, there's a lot of us in that position.
Especially after COVID.
Yeah, you're not too sure. You've been shook up and you're not too sure where to go. You're not too sure how you feel. So you're kind of, you're in that gray lost area. What next?
What next? So you have nothing to focus on. Do you get what I'm coming from?
Absolutely.
If you had a target, you would wake up every morning having a focus.
You are listening to Emotional Intelligence Simplified. Okay, so let's go and look at the myths around EI. And I think we talked about a little, but so they say EI is about being nice.
I get this all the time. And in fact, even from people that I interact with most of the time, they say, but EI is nice people. And I say, then what does nice mean? What does nice mean?
What does nice mean?
What is nice? Is it bending to your whim? Is it being calm, as we say? What is nice?
Is it being polite?
Is it being polite?
Is it making people around you feel good? I've never thought about it. What is nice?
Yeah.
Good for thought. So could you join us and let us know when you hear the word nice, what does it mean to you, our listener? Because now I'm scratching my head. Actually, what does nice mean?
What does nice mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes that word is also thrown around to mean that this particular person also never gets angry, never makes mistakes when people are concerned. They know exactly what to say, sits around the fence because, that's the only place you won't upset anyone.
Ouch. No. I was going to name a fruit, but I shall leave it alone. No, you don't want to be a fence sitter. That makes you sound like a wuss. You don't want to make people upset. So, that makes you sound like I don't know, like you're a worm. You don't have a spine. You're...
Mind you, there's a place for fence sitting as well.
Sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, but people can't think you're nice because Mwehaki is nice because Mwehaki never says anything bad. So do you really know me if I never say? I don't know. It sounds...
Actually, that's a very good question. Do I really know you? Do I really know what makes you tick? Do I know what my boundaries with you will be?
Now we're getting into boundaries. You guys, this emotional intelligence is getting deep. Now that we've talked about that. So myth number 2 is EI, emotional intelligence, is about being charismatic.
Yeah, I also get that a lot. That guy has high EI. And I'm like, why does he have high EI? When he stands up to speak, we're all moved. We're moved. He can make us move the earth, the moon, the stars.
I can tell you, we're in it together. Let's do this. And we're like, yeah.
Yes. Whereas that is a part of positively influencing other people's emotions. But just think about that now from the angle of people who move you and then don't go the extra mile of delivering with you. What do you feel?
Yeah, because there are people who can talk way. They can build those pictures in your head. But then after that, nothing.
Yeah. And there are people who are very self-aware. They know their gifts. They know what they were given. Yes. And they're also aware of other people. So they know the buttons to push, the things to say, and the words to use.
That sounds like a manipulator.
Yes, it does, actually, doesn't it?
So it could be people who are very gifted at saying the right words, considering the season in Kenya is political. We're about to go have an election. It's like politicians who come and tell you the most amazing things, but we don't see anything. So I don't know, is that really a good thing? Is that emotional intelligence?
And that is why it cannot be sustainable, because this relationship with this person will always be based on something that they are promising or doing. And more often than not, you will begin to see through them, for lack of a better word. So that behavior is not perceived as something authentic. Let's use the word authentic.
Yes. So the words start coming out slowly as we have this discussion. So it doesn't mean that if a person is charismatic, it does not automatically mean that they have emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
Now, another myth is that people with high emotional intelligence are able to handle a whole host of things. You know, they are resilient and unbreakable. Nothing moves them. That sounds like Superman, and I don't think we have such people.
And there's no Superman, and there are no people who don't break down at some point or the other. It's just, I guess, the way people break down that is different. And now, since we've identified that there's no Superman, this one myth is based on the fact that on how people define resilience.
Okay.
People tend to define resilience as not the ability to bounce back, but the ability to take
on more things, overload yourself, break my back.
You're resilient, eh? You can do like 3 jobs, 4 jobs in a day. You're resilient. So that's the this is resilience nation.
No. See, one day I'll just buckle and crack and fall and break.
Yeah. So even as we continue discussing what EI is and what we consider as resilience, you notice that resilience is about, again, the word boundaries.
Boundaries. Yes.
It's not about taking in what Mwehaki can take in because I want to keep up with Mwehaki. And it could be as easy or as simple as Mwehaki posts 3 times a day.
Whoa. It's a lot of work, man, keeping up. Yeah, keeping up with other people.
Yeah, and part of resilience is really being authentic and true to yourself.
And knowing your limits.
Awareness.
There we go. You need the words anyway. The words are just coming out as they go along. Now, there's another myth that certain personalities have more EI than others. So, is it that people sometimes think that if somebody's quiet, calm and collected like you must have very high emotional intelligence?
I found it from different groups defining it differently. Some will define the calmer side of personalities as being the EI people. Others will define the charmers, the influencers, and here I'm using the DISC model: dominant, influence, conscientious, and steady or stable. So others will find the influencers who are able to talk through problems, engage people, and be enthusiastic about most things as what they consider as high EI. Maybe sometimes the only part I found people blaming a bit too harshly is the dominant side, because they can tend to be aggressive. And because of their drive for results, they also tend to be a bit brash with people. So, yeah, it depends on who you're talking to.
So for some, they may think a quiet person has high emotional intelligence. For others, like you're saying, it's that person who just takes off and runs everything. Yeah, so it's quite a challenge.
It's quite a challenge. And there is no personality style, at least not the basic ones, like sanguine, phlegmatic, choleric. And what's the other one? Sanguine, phlegmatic, choleric, and
how can it go?
Melancholic. Yeah. So they each have positives, and they each have areas of challenge. And those areas of challenge, again, become an area of challenge depending on the situation, depending on who they're interacting with. There's a whole host of other reasons.
Yes.
So if you consider that for one moment, how can you say that because you're this particular personality?
Because you're sanguine, you're the one who has the highest emotional intelligence, and then you can decide that the cholerics, not the cholerics, the melancholic are the ones who don't have emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Also, another thing people say is in line with this as well, is that women have more emotional intelligence than men.
I don't know whether there's some truth to it, because
You're considering it?
No, I just wonder, because of course men always say they're logical and women work on emotions.
So which is
but
which?
like you said, everything we do is driven by emotion.
So for you, you're thinking men have higher levels of emotional intelligence than women?
No.
So are you thinking that women have higher levels of emotional intelligence than men?
No. I just think maybe women may express it a bit better.
I see.
I could be wrong.
Okay.
I think our emotional intelligence and ability to do things is also through how we are nurtured and taken care of.
So do you think firstborns have higher levels of emotional intelligence?
You cannot
than
ask a
lastborns?
firstborn such a question.
Why? Okay, fine. Do you think a secondborn and a lastborn have different levels of EI?
I don't know. Do they?
I don't know.
What do our listeners think? Who has more emotional intelligence? Could it be the firstborns, because they're taught to be responsible, to always think about the needs of the other? By the way, that could be a problem. So yeah, who? You are listening to Emotional Intelligence Simplified. And now we get to, I think, the last myth, and that's the biggest one, is that, you know what? You either have emotional intelligence or you don't, almost as if like you're born with it, like the IQ. So really, is that true?
That's like a big, big myth. The myth that you're either born with it
or without
it is not true at all. And I think there's a lot that has been done today to really show it as for the skill that it is. Just like we learn how to communicate better, just like we learn how to conflict better, just like we learn how to do presentations better, just like we have an innate gift in mathematics, but we have to have constant daily practice
to get better at it.
So anyone can actually, if they want to, and if they see the benefit, can actually grow their skill muscle or muscle in EI. And one of the other things I think I like to say here is that, yes, some people do grow up in a context that celebrates EI. So they learn it earlier on in their lives. That is what happens. So
they develop the skills earlier.
Because they can see it being exhibited. They may not even understand it for the intellectual words that we're using here, but they can see the behaviors, they emulate the behaviors, and so they grow up knowing that these things are good things. You get what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. So at least now we understand exactly what, what EI is not.
What EI is not.
Absolutely. So it's not about being charismatic, it's being forever happy. I don't know if people are forever happy.
Yeah, so I think at this point, having just explored some of the myths that have been there, and there are many more.
Absolutely.
If you have anything that you'd like to ask us about EI, whether this is EI or not, please feel free to send us a chat and we will address that.
So why don't we look at, maybe we can explain, maybe given experiences, how EI, of what EI is or how we have felt about it.
I'd actually like to start with an exercise we do when we're running our facilitated programs.
Okay.
And what we do is we ask you everyday questions around people you interact with, just to give you what your everyday experience of high EI could be and low EI could be.
Okay.
One of the things to realize is that whereas there are people who are really high on EI, they've mastered the art of self-awareness, awareness of others, resilience, they inspire people. More often than not, it is that you have you've developed the skill of one or two areas, and maybe it's only one area that you need to look at.
Okay.
So you cannot say that in a blanket statement that you're low on EI. It's most likely that there's some areas that you need to work on to grow your EI muscle.
Okay, so we're going to do the exercise now?
Yes.
Okay.
So I want you to think of a person, whoever that is, who has been a mentor, a boss, a teacher, someone in some form of authority.
Okay.
And I want you to think through some of this set of questions that I'm going to ask you. And if you have a pen and paper, you can write it down. If not, maybe you can keep a mental note of the scores. And I'm only going to ask 3 questions.
Okay.
So the first question is, this person who was a great mentor, I want you to think of a great mentor, a great teacher, a great boss. When you remember this person, you get good feelings, buzzing all over you. When you think about them, how often did they make other people feel appreciated around you? Was it less than other people do? Was it significantly less than other people do? Was it just in the same way other people did? Or was it significantly more than what you observed other people doing? So you're looking at this person in relation to what others are doing. Yeah. So if I'm thinking of Mwehaki, I'm saying, how often did Mwehaki make others feel appreciated? Is it in the same way that everyone did it? Did they do it a little bit more? They went out of their way to make other people feel appreciated. Did they do nothing at all when it comes to feeling appreciated? So give them a score between 1 and 5. 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest.
Okay.
And then the second question that I will ask you is, how often did you perceive you?
Me?
Yes, you. How often did you perceive that their decisions were fair or ethical? This is about your perception
of this person.
Yes. We're not calling them ethical or non-ethical. We're talking about your perception.
Was that a good decision? Was that fair?
Was that fair? Was that ethical? So how often did you see this demonstrated? Was it more than other people did it? More often than not, their decisions were seen as fair. The way they treated other people was seen as fair. Or was it that less than others, they were completely unfair and guys gruntled about anything that they said or decisions that they made? Or, average. So score them between 1 being least and 5 being the most, more often. And then the last question, I could ask more, but I'll ask 3, is how honest were they about the mistakes they made? So case in point here is, if a mistake was made, did they quickly pass the buck to someone else?
Yes.
This was you should have done this should have been done. Did they also sometimes not speak about it, keep quiet and let it boil over as you speak?
Okay.
Did they consciously say, yes, this was done under my watch and therefore I take full ownership for it, and I'll find out what happened and try and resolve it? How often did you see them do that?
Okay.
Yeah. So if they did it a lot more than other people, give them a 5. Significantly less than others, give them a 1, and anything in between. So what total do you have, Mwehaki?
I have 12.
12. Good. 12 out of 15.
Yeah.
And then I want you to tell me, how did this person make you feel?
Appreciated. Acknowledged. As in, I wasn't like one of the sheep. You know how some people talk to people out there, you're a crowd, but I felt acknowledged as a person. And I felt appreciated.
Now I want you to think about one of the more difficult, if not the most difficult people you've had to work with. So it could be, again, a teacher, a mentor, a boss, previous boss, and we're going to rate them in the same way. Remember, 1 is for, the least and 5 is for the most. And the first question, we're only asking 3. Usually we ask 6.
Oh.
There's how often did they make others feel appreciated? So you notice that they went out of their way to really make other people feel appreciated. They never did it because they were somewhere stuck in a cubicle. I don't know what that could be. But on a scale of 1 to 5, rate them, with 1 being the least and 5 being the most points you can give them for how often they made other people feel appreciated.
Okay.
And then the second one is, we had asked how often in your mind did you perceive the decisions they made? How did I put that?
To be fair.
To be fair.
Did I think that was just thinking about what they did? That decision, was it a good one, a bad one?
Yes.
Do I support it?
How often were you grumbling about decisions that they made?
Let's not even go there.
1 to 5. And then the last one is how we talked about how honest were they about mistakes that they made. So give them again, if they're like, throw it, yes, that one was mine. Or they're, throw people under the bus. Shop. Again, rate them 1 to 5.
Where?
What are you getting?
5.
You've tried. It's 5 out of 15. So they didn't fail too much. Now I'm going to ask you another question. I should have asked you this question before, but on a scale of 1 to 10, and this is for the good boss, the great mentor, teacher, on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yes.
At 9 o'clock in the evening, if you're the kind of person who has their phone with them at that time, because I know there are some people who also leave their phones at the door, and you see this person calling you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to pick up that call?
I tell you the figure.
Yes.
8.
And then if they told you they wanted something off you that was going to get you out of your comfort zone to help them do, how likely is it that you are going to do it? Maybe they're like, please log onto the system, tick this, I forgot to do it, it's important.
Maybe another 8.
Now think about the other person. If they called you at 9 o'clock and you're the kind of person who has their phone with them and you saw the call, how likely on a scale of 1 to 10, willingly, not out of fear, were you to pick that call?
If fear was not involved, it's a 3.
So fear is involved. So that is your everyday experience with people with higher levels of emotional intelligence and lower levels of emotional intelligence. And now the last question is, how did this person make you feel? Are you asleep or
no? I'm looking at my figures and I'm like, this one still did badly. The leader, the great teacher, did well. I felt I was important. I was appreciated. I was acknowledged. The other person, if it wasn't for work, if I just, how you're going through the motions.
Yeah, we do this in class all the time, and we've had people say, I felt stupid, I felt uneasy, unappreciated,
or picked on.
I did not exist.
Yeah,
I didn't matter.
Yes.
All kinds of vocabularies. On the other hand, I've also had people say about their great mentor, I felt smart. And I keep saying, that's a very key word there. To feel smart. No one changes your IQ, but someone can make you feel smart, meaning you're going to be able to approach life like you're smart, like
like you can do it. Somebody
like
who empowers you, kind of tells you, I believe in you, I know you can do this.
Yeah, and I'm here to support you if you can't.
We don't get many people like that.
But we do get a few.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, you can never give up, but it's true. Okay, so, I think that's a beautiful way to have broken down the myths around emotional intelligence. And yes, if you have any questions, it is a good time to write to us and let us know. And we can continue to answer these questions in our podcast. Remember, this is Emotional Intelligence Simplified, and I have been your host, Angela Muhaki, and today we had with us
Vicky Karoga
from Profiles International, who are the sponsors of this podcast. You are listening to Emotional Intelligence Simplified. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do so on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We are Profiles International. If you want to get more information on the programs we run or what we do, write to us at info@profiles.co.ke. You can also WhatsApp us or call us on 0722 45 7777. You can also contact Angela Muhaki at Muhaki Thinking Out Loud on Twitter and on Facebook at Angela Muhaki.